Welcome to the Unruhe Show, the show that has no bias towards the capitalist class. On tonight's program, I will be talking about the DPRK and how it has vowed revenge after an alleged attempt on the leader Kim Jong-un's life. And then later I'll be talking about a U.S. soldier who was arrested in Korea and convicted of smuggling $11.5 million worth of methamphetamine into the country. And then I'll be talking about Al Jazeera and how it has now been accused of filming a false flag chemical attack for the United States government and the Syrian opposition. All that and more tonight. The DPRK is vowing revenge after an alleged plot to assassinate the leader Kim Jong-un was stopped just recently in the country. The North's army will launch a series of more powerful anti-terrorism striking actions and mercilessly destroy the terrorists, read a report published by the state-run Korean Central News Agency on Monday. It noted that during the public ceremonial events in Pyongyang marking the birth of North Korean founder Kim Il-sung, the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, and South Korea's intelligence service had attempted to poison Kim with biochemical substances. It also claimed that the CIA had paid $40,000 to a North Korean national to kill their leader. Pyongyang's head of intelligence, Ri Byung-ho, has stressed that the suspect behind the failed assassination is a very important person, while noting that so far 80 attempts against Kim's life have been thwarted. Now, after this accusation, the U.S. media has claimed that, well, the DPRK has shown no evidence of this alleged attack, and the statement is true. They haven't shown any evidence of the attack. But I would like to note that the United States has assassinated many leaders in history. In fact, this is a common theme that the United States has carried out against all countries that they have basically been to war and pseudo-war against for merely not carrying out their particular interests. Do we need to really remind them of the previous reports of over 600 assassination attempts that were made against the former Cuban leader, Fidel Castro? No. And that one did make the media for a while, but then it very quietly went away. So I asked the question, on what basis should we really think that this is a lie, that North Korea is just making this up to try to demonize the United States? Political assassinations are stock in trade for the CIA, and it's something they've done repeatedly in the past, to the tune of 600 attempts on one man's life. So I certainly do believe that there probably have been 80-some-odd plots against Kim Jong-un's life since he came into leadership only a few years ago. I mean, we saw Donald Trump come right out into the public and say that there was the option of a precision strike or a decapitation effort, that there was an option that they could use to get rid of the leadership of the DPRK rather than starting a conventional war with the now nuclear state. And then once we remember, like, the media is usually very quick to attack Donald Trump for anything, but in this case, since they are carrying out imperialist interests, they seem to have just forgotten the time that Donald Trump, be it only last month, said that there was a plot. They had a plan that they could use to decapitate the leadership of the DPRK. And I find it terribly ironic that the U.S. media, or particularly the imperialist media in general, is just saying that, is criticizing Pyongyang for coming out with a claim and not showing evidence, considering that's been the stock in trade for the imperialist media to use against the DPRK for decades, making all kinds of crazy allegations against a country. Some of my favorite have been that the DPRK said that there was such things as unicorns, when no such thing was actually said. Or the allegation that Kim Jong-il claims to have invented the hamburger, another false claim. But when it comes to the DPRK, you can make up just about any crazy thing you want, and people will buy it. They will believe it with just, as soon as you say it, no questions asked. If it's North Korea, you can just make up any insane, ridiculous thing, and the American public, or the imperialist public in general, will just absolutely believe it. But of course, if the DPRK accuses the United States of doing something that it does all the time, and said that it was thinking about doing, you would, of course, be very skeptical and require proof of that. Moving to Middle Eastern news, Al Jazeera, it's a known Arabic language and English language, 24-hour news station that is based out of Qatar and mostly funded by the Qatari government and by proxy the Qatari royal family. Well, now they've been accused of filming a chemical false flag attack in Syria to be used at some time in the future against the government of Bashar al-Assad. Now, the fake chemical attack has allegedly been filmed by Al Jazeera stingers in Syria, a military diplomatic source claims. Now, the effectiveness of the White Helmet's TV spectacle accusing Syrian authorities of carrying out all kinds of chemical attacks, particularly sarin, inspired terrorists to continue filming the fake series. So it seems that with the previous false flags and how successful they've been, the American public and the imperialist public in general has just completely eaten it up without question. They decided that they're going to continue doing that because it's been so effective. Now, according to information that has been collected by several channels, the Al Jazeera television stingers have recently filmed a stage or a fake scene of an alleged chemical attack against civilians by the Syrian army, a source told Sputnik News. Now, the source said around 30 fire engines, ambulances, as well as over 70 local residents' children transported from a refugee camp were used in filming across 3 locations in the Idlib province, according to Jazeera Shughur. A multiple simultaneous uploading of filmed fake footage with screaming social media commentary due to take place in the next few days. And this report came out, a few days ago, so it's bound to come out, any time now. It's part of a separate command and mastermind to sponsor the film in one of the European countries. So look for a deep European connection to this story if it actually does indeed come out. The filming appears to have been ordered by a European company, that source told Sputnik News. Now, the revelations come in the wake of a chemical attack that just took place recently in Idlib province, which was followed by a U.S. missile attack inside of Syria. On April 4th, the National Coalition for the Syrian Revolutionary and Opposition Forces claimed 80 people were killed and 200 injured in a suspected chemical attack in Khan Sheikhoun, blaming the Syrian government. Now, Damascus has vehemently denied these allegations, and then as early as April 7th, the United States then proceeded to launch 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles at a Syrian airfield at the Ash-Shai Irat, located about 50 kilometers or 25 miles away from the city of Homs. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump said the attack was a response to the alleged chemical attack that had been carried out. But of course, it's not enough time for an investigation to have actually been carried out, despite firmly saying that an investigation needed to be done. Now, Russia did describe the attack as a blatant violation against a sovereign state. Now, earlier, the Russian Foreign Ministry reminded Donald Trump that all chemical weapons had been taken out of Syria in mid-2014 with the help of the previous administration, the ex-U.S. President Barack Obama. Now, the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad did an interview with Sputnik News, and that the Western states are blocking attempts to investigate the Idlib chemical incident because in the event of a probe, it will be established that the attack was actually a false flag and a lie. Now, Swedish Doctors for Human Rights already came out with their analysis of the video that was provided of supposed chemical attack victims receiving treatment from the White Helmets, saying that the whole thing was fake, and that the people who received treatment were given treatment that was so bad, if they were not already dead, the treatment would have killed them. One of the examples they used was a young girl receiving a needle to the heart that was done completely wrong. The whole thing was done by the hand of an amateur who clearly had no idea what they were doing. And they said that if this had been a real emergency, this child would have actually died as a result of the so-called treatment. And we also I also want to remind people of the allegation last week that 20 some odd bodies of children had been taken from a hospital in the same region. These are 12 deceased children. They were taken out of the morgue by rebel forces, and where they went from there is not known. So it's largely suspected that these bodies will end up being a part of some kind of false flag attack. And it seems, given that this has been recorded and the timing of the missing bodies that have been taken from the hospital and Idlib, that these might be the bodies that are going to be coming out in a new chemical attack video, one that's been apparently just filmed. Now, this is going into much more of the total lies that are being used to justify the imperialist invasion of Syria by proxy through so-called rebels, through Al-Qaeda elements, through ISIS elements, and one that definitely shows that there will be no serious attempt to try to keep any real try to allow any real investigation of what has been going on with the country and the supposed chemical attacks. One of the stories that has been going around that has not been getting quite a lot of media attention is the whole struggle over Trump's Muslim travel ban. Now, this has been overshadowed by the fact that FBI Director James Comey has been fired from his job, and rightfully so. It is a much bigger news story and is indicative of a much larger problem within the Trump administration. However, according to media reports, some of the judges who are behind reviewing this ban and the question of its legality seem very divided on the issue. Judge Robert B. King said he's never repudiated what he said about the Muslim ban. It underscores the key rationale for Maryland Federal District Court's halt to the ban. That it is intended as evidenced by Trump's campaign statements to target Muslims and therefore discriminatory. But Judge Paul V. Niemeyer questioned the plaintiff's attorney about his motive for opposing the ban. If some other candidate had won the election and issued this order, I gather you would have no problem with that, said Niemeyer, who was appointed by former President George H.W. Bush. The hearing before the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals came about 2 months after a federal judge in Maryland imposed a nationwide halt to the core portion of the president's revised executive order that sought to bar foreign nationals from 6 Muslim-majority countries from entering the U.S. for 90 days. Now, I tend to follow the example of the first judge. Trump very clearly carried out an entirely xenophobic presidential campaign looking to blame foreigners for absolutely everything, almost a la Nazi Jewish style. I mean, it was very blatant. He started from a position of building a wall to keep Mexicans out of the country. Then he proceeded to demonize Muslims, and now he's trying to carry out a ban against 6 Muslim-majority countries. Of course, the Muslim countries that were not on the list, like Saudi Arabia, just happen to be ones that are very good friends of the United States, particularly when it comes to the energy and investment sector. Now, it just simply cannot be denied in any rational way, shape, or form that this Muslim ban is all about literally banning Muslims. However, the Donald Trump administration certainly isn't politically viable to do it to some of the greatest allies of the United States, and that doing so would be could be construed as an act of suicide, considering how much Saudi Arabia alone has invested in the United States, somewhere to the tune of an estimated $7 trillion. So it seems to me that this other judge, Niemeyer, who was appointed by George H.W. Bush, he seems just entirely racist to me. When this is a claim that, oh, you would be supporting it if another president did it, seems absolutely fallacious. I mean, it's simply ridiculous. This is an assertion with really nothing to back it up whatsoever. This is like the worst defense of a terribly racist ban that I've ever seen. I mean, this is some like 1950s, civil rights segregation level kind of nonsense, and it's right here. And the travel ban is only for 90 days. So this travel ban would have expired before this whole thing even gets settled inside of a court to question the legality of the whole thing. This whole mess is nothing more than a gigantic exercise in racism that is completely wasting the money of the United States taxpayer, and all of it to accomplish what? To essentially just try to force and legitimize a racist policy so that further ones can be put forward in the future. And finally tonight, a U.S. soldier has been convicted of being part of a plot to smuggle methamphetamine into South Korea to the tune of $11.5 million. Now, he has been convicted and was sentenced to several years in jail on the condition that he stay out of trouble for the next couple years. Meaning, if he doesn't do anything that gets him in trouble with South Korean authorities, the charge stays, but he won't have to face any jail time. This is about 9 pounds or 4 kilos of methamphetamine. Dominic Graham, a private first class based at Camp Stanley, was accused of agreeing to receive cookie boxes of meth sent from Los Angeles to another soldier via the Army Post Office. The drugs were discovered by customs authorities at Incheon International Airport in October, according to Stars and Stripes magazine. On Wednesday, a 3-panel judge sentenced Graham to 3 years in prison with a 5-year suspension, meaning Graham will avoid incarceration if he remains in the good graces of the South Korean law in that period. The court found that Graham had agreed to receive $11.5 million worth of meth from a suspected drug ring in exchange for more than $3,000. Another U.S. soldier, Private First Class Julian Bean, was also charged in the case, but was acquitted based on a lack of evidence. Now, what's terrible here is that we know what would have happened if this was 10 grams of marijuana on a black person in the United States. Now, I can't testify to the race of the U.S. soldier in question, but I assume he's probably white. Now, if this were a U.S. citizen with 10 grams on him, they'd be going to jail for, what, 5 years? 2 years, 3 years, depending on whatever state's particular laws. Yet this guy, this is mass smuggling. This is organized crime level, $11.5 million worth of meth, and nothing is going to happen to him. He's going to walk completely free as long as he just doesn't get into any trouble in the next couple of years. And this is frankly absolutely ridiculous. This is the kind of impunity that United States soldiers experience when they're dealing with the countries that they occupy. Look at how many U.S. soldiers have raped women in South Korea, astronomically high numbers, and they just get away with it. The soldier is either just given a light reprimand or removed from the country and placed somewhere else. It's extraordinarily rare that one of these soldiers would actually suffer real consequences for carrying out the kind of an action. Just recently, a few years ago, there was the U.S. soldier who murdered a woman because she murdered a Korean woman because she tried to leave him, according to the story. He received nothing. He completely got away with it. There was great outrage by the Korean population. This is the same Korean population that is outraged at the United States in general for its forceful placement of the THAAD missile system. Some claim that this was something that South Korea wanted. More accurate to say that its puppet government actually wanted. The mass protests against the THAAD missile system being put in the country seems to indicate the opposite. But this is more of the kind of crimes that the United States carries out on countries across the world, with absolutely no serious repercussions for not only the person who carries out the crime, but for U.S. imperialism in general. They get to act with complete impunity to these countries, which they forcefully occupy. And that'll do it for this episode of the Jason Unruhe Show. Thank you for watching. Please go ahead, rate, comment, subscribe, and share on various social media, and thank you for watching.